Hey everyone, I'm Francis and today we'll be learning about classical conditioning. Today we will be exploring classical conditioning and deep diving into Pavlov's famous experiment with his dogs. So in this experiment, he would ring a bell, feed dogs, and then measure their salivation. But he quickly discovered that even before presenting the food, dogs would just salivate by hearing the bell. And thus he started researching classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is a type of learning through association, and so through this experiment we actually see 4 different types of responses in stimulus. The first one is the unconditioned response, which is the natural response to unconditioned stimulus, such as salivation in the dogs. The unconditioned stimulus is a stimulus that naturally triggers a response, so like the food. Conditioned response is the tone of the bell because he taught the dog to associate the sound with food. And lastly, conditioned stimulus would be the tone of the bell. In addition to response and stimulus, Pavlov also researched extinction and spontaneous recovery. So extinction is when you stop responding to the conditioned stimulus when the unconditioned stimulus is removed. And then spontaneous recovery happens after extinction. It's when, after several hours, when Pavlov sounded the bell again, the dogs began to drool again. And so Pavlov suggested that extinction was actually suppressing the conditioned response rather than eliminating it. From this research, Pavlov also found out about generalization, which is the idea that the dog started drooling again even though it was a different tone of the bell. And so this could explain why phobias exist. For example, one thing might just remind you of another thing and you are afraid of both. The last topic for today is discrimination, which is the idea that the dogs also learn to respond to the sounds of a particular tone and not to other tones. So this is kind of the opposite of generalization. So discrimination is the learned ability to distinguish between the conditioned stimulus and other irrelevant stimuli. We learn to be adaptive. For example, you are scared of a guard dog, but not of a guide dog. Thanks for learning about classical conditioning.